Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maria Lourdes Gallo, Vice President at the Council of the Americas, and I'm delighted to welcome you back to the second day of our 9th Annual Women's Hemispheric Network virtual conference. We begin the program today with a terrific panel of experts for a conversation on impactful initiatives to promote women's advancement in the workplace. Joining us for the panel are Tosh Butt, Senior Vice President, Latin America at Astrazeneca, Isabel Bueno, Partner at Mattos Filho, Connie de Lange, Vice President of Communications and Corporate Marketing for the Global Cardiovascular Division at Medtronic, Laura Quevedo, HR Director of Latin America and the Caribbean at Diageo, and our moderator, Juliana Esguerra, hopefully I said that right, Managing Director and Partner at Boston Consulting Group. The panel will run for about 50 minutes, including the last 10 to 15, where we will open the floor for questions. This is an important time for collaboration, so we really encourage you to ask questions and engage the great group of experts we have here with us today. When it's time for Q&A, please submit your questions via the WebEx Q&A function. We will try to get to as many as we can. And now, as we bring the program today to begin, we really want to thank our lead sponsor, Goldman Sachs, and corporate sponsors, American Tower, AstraZeneca, Mattos Filho, and Medtronic, for their generous support for this initiative. We really could not do this without you, so thank you. Juliana, over to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Maria, for the wonderful introduction and the invitation to moderate this panel today. I think this will be a great opportunity to hear from leaders about their company's experiences and the implementation of successful initiatives to promote women's advancement in the workplace. Towards the end of the panel, as you said, we'll have some space for the Q&A, so please send any questions you may have during the panel. Without further ado, please let me start the conversation by asking a question to all of our panelists. Isabel, if you could start, what have been the most successful and concrete initiatives to support women's advancement in your company? Here, we would like to give you the opportunity to provide some data of what you've seen at each of the different companies. So, Isabel.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been for the last 33 years with the firm, and I can assure you that everything modified when we modified the relationship of the partners among themselves and with the firm, when collaboration was the new culture and is the new culture. When you need collaboration, when you need support, you need to talk to people in an equal manner. And we decided that it was time for us to tackle differences. The first one we decided to tackle was gender. And we had the support, a very strong support of my partners, my new female partners, and of our managing partner that is not with us anymore. He passed away last July, but he was a strong supporter. Having men supporting the group that we created, that was the 4 women, was the change. It provided the change. He said, you have to, Jose Eduardo, he said, you have to think of the modifications and you have to provide and you have to walk the talk. So everything that this group provided was enforceable. He provided means, and the firm provided means that we could have it. So I think that this is the first thing, to have the conscious, the need, and the support of everyone, both men and women. I would say that this is the first and the utmost, the most important change that we needed.
Thank you, Isabel. And Connie, do you wanna give us a little bit of your perspective on what has happened at your company?
Sure. Thank you so much, Juliana. I work for Medtronic, as you mentioned, and so innovation and technology innovation is just lifeblood for us. So I'm going to focus some of my comments really on tech talent and the market for technical talent, because we've seen real challenges in finding talent, and so we've had to go about creating some programs to really address this. You know, while women are very overrepresented in healthcare professions, they are underrepresented really in engineering, and a lot of this is due to systemic and institutional barriers that women and certain ethnic and minority groups face when trying to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so women simply aren't entering these STEM fields. And those who do sometimes face retention, promotion challenges, especially at the manager and above level. And, you know, we know from research that only 19% of engineering graduates are women, and only 30% with engineering degrees are still in the field 20 years later. So to combat some of these challenges, we really looked at creating some holistic, data-driven initiatives to increase the number of women and minorities at our company. And one of these is WISE, W-I-S-E, Women in Science and Engineering. Just 3 years after we launched this program, we had 90% of our R&D locations, including 72 global sites, setting up deployment teams and putting programs in place to very proactively reach out and acquire diverse technical talent, develop employees, put development programs in place, and really try to start fostering a strong culture of inclusion. And we attract the talent through a variety of innovative approaches, including reaching out to more than 9,000 students in 2019, and an internship program which hosted some 216 students. 63% of these were women, and 38% were ethnically diverse. And so that's just a little bit of a background. You know, we've moved from really trying to move the needle in terms of participation of strong female engineering talent within Medtronic. And it's just one example, and I'll talk a little bit more as the day goes on about some other programmatic ways that we have tried to advance women in our company. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Connie. That makes a lot of sense. We see the same at PCG. So a great initiative. And Laura, can you walk us through a little bit of what Diageo has experienced?
Yes. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for Council of the Americas for the invitation to be in this panel. And I thought yesterday was great also. So thank you so much. So a little bit about the initiatives that I've seen in Diageo. I joined Diageo in the year 2001. And if I think as of today, 10 years back, the whole of our executive committee was male. Right now, 55% of our board is female, and 38% of our executive committee in the company is female too. So I think the company has progressed tremendously in this. We continue obviously in the journey. If I think specifically in Latin America and the Caribbean, we've been focusing in this area. I think the first big point is around ownership, a big commitment from our leaders in diversity and inclusion overall, and obviously you'll make interventions and you'll begin to see the results, right? So if I speak about Latin America and Caribbean today, we have a split of 45%, 55, 45% female across, and our leadership teams, vice presidents and above, are in 37%, and we're progressing in the years, no? So I think this is the point where all in a journey, and we continue to learn and progress. And on that learning and progress, I think it's around generating the environments when we could really put the conversation in the table like we're doing today, really listening to what we need to do in this area to continue the progress. Now, and some of the things that we have done is diverse slates, I think, is critical. So making sure that you always have in your short list diverse candidates. So that's something that we take very seriously. Flexibility has been key also for as an intervention to make sure that we have these results and we can continue in this journey. As I said, we have some groundbreaking, I think, policies, and probably we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, for instance, our parental leaves, that support both women, but also strive to create greater gender equality overall. So some of the things that we're doing and listening in, not like my colleagues were saying before, our employee resources groups, our forums, our inclusion and diversity committees, keep the conversation going.
Thank you, Lara. And Tosh, if you can walk us through what Astrazeneca has experienced, would be great.
Thank you, Juliana. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see you.
Good. Thank you very much. First of all, Juliana, I have to say I'm honored and privileged to be here on this panel alongside 3 inspirational female leaders who I personally am looking forward to learning from. And equally as important, it's an opportunity for me to show my personal and visible support as an ally for females in leadership, and in fact for females more broadly in all aspects of life. If I start with where AstraZeneca is today, first of all, we know and we embrace the fact that there is competitive advantage in our unique perspective, and if we can bring them together, it's going to allow us in this industry and in this company to push the boundaries of science and allow us to deliver life-changing medicines for patients. And as a global organization, we strive to be an inclusive and diverse culture which champions women, it champions women in leadership, and very importantly, it creates a culture which encourages them to speak up and have their voice heard. And as a global organization, AstraZeneca, where we stand today, we've got 46% of senior managers who are female, and that's data very current as of June 2020. And if we look specifically in Latin America, in our commercial organization, that's also at 46%. So it's pretty much aligned with that. If you look at total LATAM, i.e. leadership as well as individual workers, we're at 53%. So we've still got some work to do there. When we look at our LATAM's supply, manufacturing and IT teams, we have lower representation there. So there's opportunity to encourage more women to want to pursue careers in those fields. Before I come on to 1 or 2 of the specific things we're doing in Latin America to really improve this situation, I want to take a step back and just say, look, at the end of the day, this is personal for me. I authentically and genuinely believe this is the right thing to do, and it makes business sense. So for me, it's not just implementing a corporate priority that my bosses ask of me. Even in the absence of a goal, this is the right thing to do, and we should be doing this anyway. I've got 2 daughters, and quite frankly, I don't want them to be brought up in the same environment that I have been brought up in and my sister's been brought up in. I want them to have every opportunity that I had in life. And so I want to fight to make sure the world and the working corporate environment lives up to that. Why do I think this way? Maybe it's because my first 3 bosses when I graduated from university were female. Maybe they had a big impact on me. But fundamentally, I focus on 3 things. This is the right thing to do. This is the world that we want our children to grow up in. And quite frankly, at AstraZeneca and the industry, this is who we want to be. We being me, my family, AstraZeneca, everyone in LATAM and society. And for those of you who aren't so, how'd you say, attracted by doing the right thing and it's hard-nosed business metrics, ROI, well, the data's pretty clear. Inclusive and diverse teams, they drive creativity, they drive innovation, and they improve the bottom line. So whichever motivates you, we should all be allies for women, whether you're a man or a female. So that's a little personal reflection. Now, a couple of things on the initiative we're doing at AstraZeneca to make this a reality for women in leadership. We have a Women in Leaders program. So as a company, we're investing time and dollars in women so they can develop the skills and capabilities that they're going to need to continue to get into senior leadership positions. And our flagship Women as Leaders program has already been attended by 6 women in Latin America, 4 of whom, importantly, have subsequently moved already into roles of increasing responsibility. So we're super excited about that. And a further 7 women are attending the program this year in 2020. And I have to say, I've also reviewed the succession pipelines into business critical roles in AstraZeneca Latin America in our organization. And we do that on a regular basis to make sure we've got gender parity at every level of the succession pipeline. And we're also looking at other people investments. For example, learning programs, we're looking at compensation. Somebody mentioned diverse slates earlier. And then the other thing we're doing is we've launched a Latin American network of women. So we're also investing in employee resource groups. And this is an opportunity to spotlight and support the experience of women in Astrazeneca. And earlier this year, on March 8th, just before the quarantine occurred, fortunately, we established and we launched our LATAM network of women, our first employee resource group founded by members of females across Latin America with the goal of improving the outcomes of women, not just inside AstraZeneca, but also what impact can we have on women in leadership outside of AstraZeneca, in the industry, in our local communities. And we're going to use that to build on existing ERGs in markets like Brazil and Chile and make sure they're prevalent everywhere across Latin America. And finally, the one last thing, we're also, my leadership team and myself, we've all gone through an inclusive leader workshop where we do a survey, we get feedback from people on how inclusive or maybe not inclusive we're being as leaders. And it's an opportunity for us to get that feedback, reflect on it, and then take into stock, what do I need to do as a leader to become a more inclusive leader? So with that, I'll stop. I'm conscious of time, but by the end of this year, we want to make sure all our senior management teams in Latin America and AstraZeneca go through this same inclusive leadership program, and that'll cover around 50 senior leaders in Latin America, and then they'll get an opportunity to pay it forward and transform the organization. So with that, I'll stop.
Thank you, Tosh. I hope your energy and commitment is contagious because we all need a little bit of that. So, Connie, if we can start with you, I would like to ask you, what is the importance of asking for feedback from your employees to continue to design and implement these successful initiatives that support women's advancement in the workplace?
Thank you. Thank you, Juliana. Yeah, I think, something Tosh said reminded me the point of departure for this conversation is not just about feedback, but making sure people feel they have a voice to provide feedback. And so that their feedback will be heard and that they'll be listened to. And if they put themselves out there, that there'll be action taken. And so I think that's really the first point of departure, is how is the culture not only inclusive, but how is the culture genuine so that people feel that their voice can be heard and that it matters. So I would say that was really the first part that companies need to consider, is seeding that environment properly to make sure people feel like they can really make a difference and create a community in that regard, right? One of the things that we've done, and someone earlier mentioned ERG groups. We have the Medtronic Women's Network, which is kind of the large overarching ERG group for all of our different women initiatives across Medtronic. And what we've done is we've really have segments of audiences across women, because it's not just, those women. Let's get the opinion of those women. Right? There's all different segments and types of women, right? And so we have different, what we call hubs as part of our ERGs. And these hubs are focused on different areas. Sometimes they're functionally oriented, like we have what we call the Aspire program, which is female sales leaders, because that has been a key area of focus for us, wanting to ensure we're cultivating an employee base representative of our customers. And so the Aspire group comes together from a sales perspective to really work and focus and discuss the topics most relevant to them and their function. We have other groups like I'm on the Commit to Connect group, which is for the VP women. So for the senior leadership women in the company, how do we ensure we're working together to pave the way for others and other women and hold out a hand and bring other women forward? What do we have to do systemically as really the owners of a lot of this strategy? What do we have to do? How do we have to come together? And then we take feedback from a lot of these groups and feed it back in to get all of the different angles on a particular topic. One of the other things that we have on an ongoing basis that's set up throughout the organization are lean-in circles. And we use the concept of lean-in circle to get a smaller group, somewhere between 10 to 15 employees together, men and women, but a lot of women, but men too are invited, to really focus on a particular topic that is relevant or feeling that maybe it's holding them back, and to have some very rigorous conversation, engagement, work on that topic over the course of a whole year. So it's quite a big commitment. And, you know, the topic I'm involved in now is taming adrenaline. So it's really, how do you get people to feel comfortable speaking up in public? How do you advance some of those skills? And we have these different hubs and these different initiatives across the overall population to really call out the different perspectives, the different aspects of feedback. And then one of the ones that's been fairly new is MAC, Men Advocating Change. So we realized very early on, but then more formally now, that we actually have to create an opportunity in a more formal way for men to participate in the journey of change in advocacy for women. And so we are partnering very closely with them in the Commit to Connect team that I'm on, but also really men trying to get together and talk amongst themselves in a frank and thoughtful way about how they can add value and how they can also contribute to solving some of the challenges that women have in the workplace. So those are just some of the ideas. And of course, we have an organizational health survey that goes out twice a year and looks at, you know, the impact we're having and tries to measure across different segments of our employee base, people's perspectives and opinions on the value of these programs, the impact, and if we're making progress.
Thanks, Connie. And Tosh, if I may come back to you, you mentioned that you're aiming to reach gender equality in all management positions, and you mentioned that you have reported close to 45% of women being in the senior middle management roles or higher. This is an impressive progress, but how can you take this progress to the next level, and what comes after reaching 50%?
Right, Juliana, thank you very much. So look, you're right. As I mentioned earlier, at Astrazeneca, we have 46% of senior managers that are female. And across our Latin American organization, we're aligned with that as well. We're at 46%, versus 53% in the total Latin American workforce. Now, that said, when you look at the numbers, we still have some important gaps. And a part of what I'd like to achieve working with my leadership team in Latin America in the future is ensuring that females are represented equally across key positions in the business. And I'll give you some specific examples. If I look at the 5 country presidents who are on my leadership team, only 1 is female today. Quite frankly, that's not good enough. I need to do a better job, and my leadership team needs to do a better job. I can't do it on my own. I can be the catalyst, but I need the team to work with me. Similarly, if I look at my CFOs, the 5 CFOs supporting each of those 5 country presidents, only 1 is female. Once again, that's not good enough, and that's an opportunity. And I'm picking these 2 as an example because I think these are examples of 2 business critical roles that are critical investment decision makers. They allocate money, they make strategic decisions that we operate in. And I would like to have more gender parity in these positions, not just in some of the enabling functions, which are super important, but I want to see females in these P&L jobs as well, where the investment decisions are made. I also shared earlier that when we looked at our IT organization, that's becoming increasingly more important now as the world pivots to digital. We only have 24% female representation right now. And I find that really alarming and scary, because we know that technology, we know that digital is going to be an increasing key driver of our future business, regardless of the industries we work in. And as a result, it's crucial that we have diversity in this function to support continued innovation. And it should not, and it cannot be that it's only men who make these big decisions in IT, in digital, in artificial intelligence, in machine learning. So I think that's something we've really got to have a big sense of urgency. And then finally, I think we need to think about how gender can intersect with factors such as race, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, so that all women are able to progress their careers with us at Astrazeneca and indeed across our industry. And regarding taking these numbers to the next level, I think that we need to continue to strengthen the foundation we put in place today, put more energy, dollars, and calendar time behind these initiatives that I mentioned earlier, the talent programs, the network of women, the leadership culture program. We've also got to keep thinking forward to programs or opportunities to help develop our women leaders, potentially ones that are, how would you say, specifically tailored to some of the positions and functions that I've highlighted here. And I also believe we need to continue to encourage women to speak up, embrace and engage in mentoring. And I also want to challenge and ensure that our male leaders across Latin America, they play a very proactive role in promoting and exemplifying what it means to be an ally for women. It's not just going to happen automatically. I need the men in this audience, and I hope there are men listening on this call who are going to be inspired and put this into action. And I'm also personally keen to explore opportunities that we have outside of AstraZeneca boundaries. For example, working with external partners. All the great ideas are not going to be within AstraZeneca, within my team. Myself and my team, we have to look externally, and we've got to look at other examples in other industries, other companies, related industries. And for example, what can we do to get more gender diversity in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? So there are some perspectives there, Juliana.
Thank you, Tosh. And this is a great way of ending your answer to start the next question for Isabel. As Connie and Tosh mentioned, the importance of having male support in these initiatives to support women's advancement in the companies. Isabel, I would like to hear from you, based on the experience you've had at Mattos Filho. How important is it to have the male participation? And is it that important to raise awareness about these issues, to translate it into change and effectiveness?
Okay, Juliana. Well, thank you for the question, because this is what I believe that I can talk about better. I think it is, as I said in the beginning, this was the turning point. Having men supporting the change is mandatory. Otherwise, you're going to be like me on a solo career, fighting for gender parity and you don't achieve anything. And being a service provider, just as you at BCG, assessment of everyone is crucial for the career. You only progress in your career if you have a good assessment of your work. When you want collaboration, you need equality, because you do not collaborate if you don't respect the other person. So if you don't treat that person in an equal manner, you recognize differences, but you treat the person in an equal manner. We had training on unconscious bias, all the partners, because all the male partners said, we don't have a prejudice, and we believe that they meant it. But everyone has a prejudice against something. Maybe you have a prejudice against my white hair and you don't know, but maybe you have. So we have to be conscious of these things. And then we provide collaboration, and after assessment of both men and women, not to mention other diverse, let's say, situations we have to deal with. So we had to do it, and having men supporting, our male partners supporting. Of course, I have to grant José Eduardo all the credit that he deserves, but all the other male partners also did it. It's crucial. It's crucial, Juliana.
Thanks, Isabel. And it's very nice to hear it, because I think we all believe that the importance of the role of the males in this crusade. So Laura, I would like to continue with you. I know that Diageo recently released a new parental leave policy, which gives employees, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, or the means in which they became parents, 6 months paid leave, which demonstrates your commitment to gender parity and inclusion. How can companies in today's work from home world support women who are experiencing the additional and disproportionate burden of taking care of children or family at home?
So thank you, Juliana. So yes, we launched this new parental policy. We launched globally a parental new policy. And within that, in Latin America and Caribbean, as you say, we've got 26 weeks paid for employees of any gender. So this is, we've implemented, as I said, July of last year. So it's pretty new. But so far it's going really well, very well received in this point around how we can help definitely women, but not just women. No, so we also want men to be able to be at that time that is really important, also near their children, and also to ensure gender equality. No, because this is part of generating co-responsibility also on the roles and breaking stereotypes. No, so it's quite groundbreaking. We're very pleased with it. Our employees have received it very well. And also we've seen a lot of impact also externally, no, because really hopefully this helps in the quest of gender equality also beyond our own workforce, but also in our societies and in our communities. So some other things that we're doing, obviously in this specific time of COVID, in particular, we had begun before with some flexibility, also policies across the region. But of course, with COVID, this has begun increasingly more critical. So we are focusing a lot on that. So line manager and employee agreements around flexibility is key, making it more normalized, right? So I was speaking the other day with one of a female new hire, and she was sharing, it's amazing how in this company you can be having a conversation like this and have your kid pop up in the Zoom, right, or in the WebEx, and she was saying that's not typical in all the companies. No, so generating that environment where it's okay, it's part of being a really inclusive culture. So obviously that is really important for us, and connected to obviously flexibility. As I said, we've also done quite a bit of interventions during this period. As you know, Latin America has been through, most of the countries, a huge lockdown period, and months and months and months in some countries. And definitely we had to do a lot in terms of supporting our employees on how to work from home in the cases where they're working from home, for instance, in our employees from our offices. Also on well-being, we've done interventions with an employee assistant program across all the countries. And basically here we are supporting in all the areas where it is psychological, nutrition, financials, legals, etc. But 30% of that support was used for family support of that employee assistant program that we implemented all across. So definitely there is the need. We need to keep the conversation going, but those are some of the things that we are doing today.
Thank you, Lara. And definitely COVID put extra effort in all companies, right, to make sure that we can move on and continue with our lives. So I would like to ask you the final question. This question is for the four of you, and then we can move into Q&A. In today's world, when leaders are facing growing challenges and concerns to keep their companies afloat, how can we ensure that we progress in this area, the progress that we've made in this area is not lost? And looking at the future, how can we continue promoting women's advancement in the workplace in the midst of all the other challenges that we're seeing? And Laura, I would like to start with you, if you want.
Yes, Juliana. So I think basically it's everything that we've shared today. I don't think there's only one answer, but I think the main thing is keeping the focus on this. We know there's a lot of research out there that is showing that this is a big results, especially of the crisis that we're living today. Okay, so we need to keep a lot of focus on making sure that the women we have, that we retain them in the company, and that we create the spaces for more women also in the organizations now. So definitely focus on this. I think ownership, I think we've said it all along from all the leaders, irrespective of gender. So women, men, definitely this is our agenda for all of us, and leaders and the overall organization. No? So this is about the culture. We believe in creating the most inclusive and diverse culture overall, and this is all of us employees of the company to create this. No? So definitely focusing on this. Many of the initiatives that we've described, from flexibility, for instance, that is key and will continue to be key, to having groundbreaking policies regarding parental leaves, as we also shared, to generate much more gender equality. I think is also critical too, and to keep listening, no, because new things will come up, and we need to be aware. And this is basically for everyone, no, for women and for men. So some of the things that I can think of, but this is beyond obviously the workplace. Another one, I think someone else mentioned it, around the role models, right? Really having conversations of this nature, both women and men. It's not one or the other, it's all of us in the same conversation is key, and not just within the organization, but outside, no, like we're doing today with our communities, and helping shape obviously change in our societies, in this case in Latin America.
Thank you, Laura. And Connie, do you want to give us your perspective on this one?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think this is incredibly important. And you referenced in your last question that the burden in terms of family care and such is being disproportionately put towards women now in this period. There's other research that's come out recently that has reinforced that, and also said not only that, but women are saying, I'm done, I'm checking out, I'm finished, I'm leaving the workforce. So when we say that the progress is not lost, we also have to ensure that we're inclusive of that women aren't checking out and opting out, right? That's the worst progress that we could lose, right? Is that women who have advanced are now saying, I just can't do it anymore. You know, it might sound a little soft or a little ethereal, but we have to get very good at practicing grace, authenticity, and care with our employees, right? It is so key that we give people grace at this time. And it's so important to try to keep the women who have progressed retained, because we can't work from a point of going backwards. So, you know, for me, it's really about how do you build in and weave in all that we're talking about into the core way you work. So it's not that diversity is the latest fashion statement and it's happening over there and those people and those hubs and this policy is dealing with it. It's how does this become just the interwoven fabric of who your company is? And I think that's about a systematic, progressive approach with a multifaceted, the programs we've discussed before, as Laura said, you know, it's how do we embed all of these things on an ongoing basis, and ensure that we're also inspecting and saying, is this working, right? Let's listen, let's measure, and let's really see what is impacting positively, and how do we ensure that we leverage that to have continuity. So, I mean, that's just some top line from my perspective.
Thanks, Connie. And Isabel, it would be great to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Okay. It was your question is something that makes me worried, not for our level, but for the base level. This is something that really is a matter of concern to me in every profession, in every situation. I can have assistants at home. My kids are grown, your kids are grown. The other one can have a nanny or something like that. We can manage. Who is the person that can't manage? Is the one that is very in the base of the pyramid of the working force. And this is what concerns me. But getting back to my, I'm just sharing my heart with you. My concern, I think that what we achieved in Mattos Filho is the conscious that we have some biases, and we are already aware of it. So having the assessment, making the assessments in a very fair way of both men and women, with partners and lawyers. Lawyers also do, very senior lawyers, they do assessment and they take care and they do mentorship to other lawyers. I think that having this program, this process in a fair way will guarantee that the women that need access and that are, well, the ones right for senior positions, they will assess it. And also, I think that we need women in the top every time to say and to sustain that if a woman says, this is difficult to me, you can say, oh, I think it is. I think it is. If another woman says, no, it's not for me, it was not for you, but it was for me, so I can recognize this complaint. So having people of all genders, all ages in the top will help enhance the ones that are on the baseline. I have several are listening to us here. Some senior, they're in different positions. I think that maybe they will afterwards be able to say if having a fair assessment isn't the best thing for us to provide for our lawyers, a fair assessment of their capabilities.
Thanks, Isabel. And Tosh, just to end this round of questions, we would love to hear what's happening at Astrazeneca and how are you seeing that as well?
Thank you, Juliana. So, look, we've seen in the recent news that due to COVID-19 and the quarantine impacts, women have been dropping out of the workforce at very unfortunately a record rate. And look, the comments that Laura, Isabel and Connie just made are truly insightful on this topic. And I managed to find some stats in this area that were quite alarming, numbers to back up what Laura, Isabel and Connie stated, and that there was a CNN report that showed that since the pandemic had started, 617,000 women had left the workforce in September alone, compared to only 78,000 men. And I have to imagine that ratio is going to be very similar in Latin America and maybe even more pronounced, There was also a CNBC article recently that I read that said that 1 in 4 women are considering downshifting their careers or leaving their workforce due to coronavirus. And I can promise you the numbers are a lot less for men, So there's a real risk here that we could undo all the tremendous progress that we've made. And very recently, it must have been 2 weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast and it showed that it was a big discussion talking about the fact that with kids homeschooling, whenever kids have an issue or a question, or in my house, a meltdown or a tantrum, invariably, they go to the mother and not the father for advice and help. And that disrupts how my wife, how she shows up at work. She's in and out of meetings, having to make excuses. So she doesn't leave as professional an impression with the group, with the boss, with the stakeholders as a corresponding male. And so I can tell you that's how it works at my home. So I'm doing my best to try and get my daughters to come to me for help. But the reality is they're just used to going to mum and it's just not going to change. So the data is pretty alarming. And like I said, this means we have to work really hard to keep on to this ambition we have for women in leadership, particularly in these P&L positions. Research showed that after the economic crisis of 2007 and 8, companies with a meaningful number of women on their board were more likely to demonstrate some of the key organizational capabilities needed for success. So we need to make sure we're providing management opportunities to women in spite of COVID-19. That can't be an excuse that it can't happen. We need to allow them to speak up. We need to listen to them. And we've got to continue to provide valuable mentorship opportunities for them. And look, remember, we also need to look at ways to support all of our employees. It's not just women, but all of our employees with some of the increased social and financial burdens that have come with this COVID-19 crisis. And in Astrazeneca, some of the things we're doing, and we've got to continue to do a much better job, is if we've got to invest in childcare programs, we've got to invest in well-being services, in mental health services, to allow people and women to better juggle and balance the multiple responsibilities they've got when their work life meets their home life. So we've really got to think about how we possibly redesign the workplace of the future to allow women and men to engage and retain our women in leadership roles. And look, a couple of other reflections I'd make, Juliana, is, look, the key thing here is we have to be honest and transparent. There are two things we have to do. And what do I mean by that? No one expects everyone to know everything, and especially when it comes to diversity. We're going to make mistakes, okay? And that's okay as long as the intent is pure. But what we've got to do is continue to ask questions, explore differences with the right intent, and to create this sense of belonging for the whole workforce. And look, I often find the focus is on what women need to do differently, what women need to do less of, what women need to do more of to succeed in a man's world. But equally as important, my message again is going to go out to the men on this call. We also need to change the way we lead, change the way we hire, reflect on the decisions that we make. Remember, it takes two to tango, especially the fact is it's men who occupy the vast majority of leadership roles today, particularly the P&L roles. So it's men making those decisions. So with that, Juliana, look, I hope we have many men on this call. I hope my message and Laura and Connie and Isabel's message encourages these men to lean in, listen, and be passionately committed to make a difference for women in addition to men.
Thank you, Tosh. And if there are not that many men on the call, we need to make sure that they see the video of this
exactly
of this webinar. So we've received a couple of questions from the audience. I'm gonna read the questions, and if any one of you wants to answer, just let me know. The first question is, how do you combat gender bias in the office? And Connie, you were talking about gender bias trainings. I don't know if you wanna go deeper in this, or Laura, or Isabel, or Tosh.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit. Someone else mentioned as well, but I think we have been very focused, not just gender bias, but unconscious bias. I think it was Isabel who mentioned that, and the trainings on that. We've been making that very visible to all employees, and have put some really excellent programs in place to bring awareness to these, weak spots we all have, blind spots we have that are inherent, that everybody has. It's not just them or those, it's everybody has some form of unconscious bias. And so I think that has been really critical. It's also helped, I think, a bit culturally, where, people are just much more mindful and thoughtful about how they think and how they show up and what they say, thinking of the other people first versus just themselves. So that's one aspect that I think is super helpful and has been really impactful for us.
I think I would add, Juliana, if I may, I think I agree totally with Connie on the unconscious bias, but also on inclusive leadership, which I think, Connie, you mentioned it too, right? We also are focusing quite a lot on inclusive leadership too, and a lot of things that applies obviously for everyone, not just in this conversation on gender, but it's also an initiative that we highly recommend.
Me too.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Tosh. Me too. It's disruptive. The moment you realize that you have, as Connie said, I like the way, blind spots that you have in yourself, and that you have to be aware. You can be aware of my white hair. You would say, I don't have a prejudice against it, but you have. And then you never promote me. This is something that you have to hire the correct people to train you.
What I would add to build on Isabel's remarks is, by the way, Isabel, I think your grey hair looks really cool. I think it's really fashionable, and I'm very impressed. Okay, so whoever's not impressed, I don't understand it. So look, I would say, look, when it comes to inclusive leadership, which is what we're talking about here, look, I do think training has a role to play. There's no doubt about that, because training can reset, it can remind, it can inspire people of how they're meant to behave and lead. But I don't think we can rely on training, because I come back to, how do we instill inclusive leadership every day in the job, in everyday small interactions? Because that's what makes culture, not a 4-hour training or a 1-week training, but the hundreds of meetings we go to every day throughout the course of our day. And so a simple thing I've been trying to do a better job on, and I've got to thank my HR team and the leadership team I work with, is simple things by, we'll be discussing a topic and 4 or 5 people won't have said anything. And so now I write their names down and I make a point. Sarah, you haven't said anything for a while. Any perspectives on this topic? What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And I'll call people out to make sure they are encouraged or even forced to give me their point of view. That way I can capture females, any introverts, any people who are being reflective, anyone who's maybe multitasking and not paying attention. But I'm sometimes, quite often, I'll also say to them, surely somebody has a different point of view. We can't all be agreeing on this. We're 10 people on this leadership team. And I'll even say sometimes this, and this is really strange. At my family dinner table in the evening, we never agree on anything. So how comes we've got 10 intelligent people here discussing a really important topic and we're all in agreement? I don't believe it. Somebody's lying or somebody's not speaking up. And so I'm trying to challenge my team to try and give them that permission in a very human way. Thank you.
That's great, Tosh. So next question. Sometimes I feel that most of the corporate policies are mainly focused on mid-career and up women, which is great. Nevertheless, how does your companies address the difference among women generations in terms of benefits and corporate mindset? Anyone?
This is new. A policy for different generations of women.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Someone was starting to talk.
I was just reflecting on the question. No? It's a really good question. I think we're not just focusing on leadership, right? So I just want to share, at least from my experience, no? So we're looking at across the organization at every level, and overall it's about creating the culture, as we said. Some of our policies clearly are applicable to everyone. So if we talk about flexibility at any stage of your life, right? Whether it's kids, elderly parents, or right, whatever is the situation you're in. No? So definitely, I think the policies are not just exclusive for one. If we talk about, for instance, the support programs on employee assistance programs, right? They're applied for everybody, and whatever your situation is, no, personally and family wise, no. So I think it's not just for one segment. At least that would be my answer.
Great.
Mine too. Mine too. It would be something that is for all ages. But I never thought if there's something here that should be thought of. I thank the question.
Yeah, this one's got me thinking as well. And at times I struggle with this one, because we've got to continue to make sure we review and update our benefits policy, our well-being policy, in light of the changing workforce, because you've got 5 generations now in the workforce. And I think if we're being really self-critical, our policies and benefits, I guess they skew towards addressing the older, more established generations, and the newer generations, because they're not in positions of leadership and maybe their voice hasn't been heard and acted on, maybe the policies don't reflect what's going to really inspire and keep them within our organization and our industry. So that's a challenge for all of us. But I think one of the other panelists mentioned this. The other one is, I don't think it's just for women. because I was thinking about the benefits packages and employee support services. I think with COVID-19, it's really amplified the mental health impact on people. And that mental health of working from home, your work is your home, your kids are at home, you don't have any separation, that impacts women as well as men. And I think there's probably a lot of men, particularly in Latin America, because of the macho culture, they would refuse to accept they need mental health help. They refuse to accept they need well-being help. And I think that's something we're going to have to address if we want men and women to achieve their full potential at work and at home. So that's another opportunity for growth.
Yeah, I think just, can I add something else there?
Sure.
Just as Tosh was sharing, I think on this point, and I think we're all learning, and it's a great question. Some other things that we've been looking into and that we're doing in some of our countries, I'm not saying in all, is flex benefits to actually adapt to the needs of the different generations. No, I think that was a bit the question, and as Tosh was saying, not just gender, one gender or the other, no, but overall. So looking into flex benefits is something definitely that we as companies can do.
Thank you, Laura. And thank you all for your perspectives. We're running out of time, and I really want to thank you for your time here. It's a very important topic, and you provided very concrete examples of what has worked. So definitely super useful for everyone interested in pushing this forward. I'm sure everyone found this to be very useful on their own spaces, and we invite you all to integrate these best practices as you design inclusive initiatives that promote women's advancement in the workplace. So I have to close now. I want to thank you, the Council of Americas, for this opportunity. And now over to you, Maria.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Isabel, Connie, Laura, Tosh, and Juliana. Juliana, you did an excellent job. Thank you. This is such an important conversation, you know, in a year that's really marked by crisis and uncertainty, one that we will continue to live in for the foreseeable future. The choices I think companies make today will have consequences for gender equality for years to come. So it's critical to showcase the initiatives that are truly making an impact, and to see your passion and commitment inspires us to continue to grow our own commitment to our Women's Hemispheric Network. So thank you so much, because really it's been a fantastic conversation. We will have the link up, I think probably within the next 24 hours or pretty much immediately on our website, and we'll send you the link. So we do encourage you to share it as much as you can. So thank you again, and thanks to everyone who joined us for the second day of our conference. We hope to see you again very soon. For those of you participating in the sponsor breakout sessions, which come up next, you need to actually log out of this program and re-log in with the private link sent to you earlier today. If you have any issues connecting, please email women@as-coa.org. So again, the email, if you're having challenges reconnecting to the breakout sessions, is women@ascoa.org. You can email them for assistance. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to the panelists and our moderator today. We hope to see you again very soon. And stay well, everybody.